He saw an ordinary man. He pulled a gun. He never knew he was firing at the architect of his own downfall. Witnessed the ultimate reckoning. Hands up, you damn ape. Don't move. What's a filthy slave like you doing so calmly in this neighborhood? Officer Mark Thorne bellowed, his face contorted with visible rage. Thorne was one of those patrolmen nobody wanted as a partner, not out of fear, but out of sheer embarrassment. Greasy monkey. What's a guy in a suit doing on this block? No Wall Street here, he muttered to himself, taking a swig from his coffee cup and spitting it out the window. The man he was watching stood calmly in front of a phone store, dark-skinned, yes, but impeccably dressed in a pressed blazer, expensive shoes, and holding a leather briefcase, speaking softly into his cell phone. For Mark, this composure was a profound provocation. They think they can just walk anywhere now, like they're regular people. He unseated, drawing his weapon, stepping out his patrol car and walking directly toward the man. No warning, no request for ID, nothing. He raised his gun as if confronting a hardened criminal and screamed, his voice thick with prejudice, "Hands up, black man." On the ground. The man looked up, surprised. He didn't drop. He didn't run. He simply lowered his phone slowly, his brow furrowed, his expression unmoving. "Are you talking to me?" "Of course I'm talking to you, you bastard." Mark spat. "What are you hiding, huh? Drugs? A weapon? None of you are clean, never. You're all the same." People on the street began to stop, some pulling out their cell phones. Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. A woman's voice cut through the air, "What is that officer doing? He hasn't done anything." But Mark was lost in his own world, his finger on the trigger, his hatred inflamed, his voice spiraling out of control. "Drop that briefcase, you piece of trash, or I'll fill you with lead." The man took a deep breath, still unmoving, and then spoke. His voice was deep, steady, as if silence itself obeyed his command. "What if I told you that you've just made the biggest mistake of your life?" Mark let out a mocking laugh. "What if I told you I don't give a damn what some monkey in a tie says?" Mark gripped his weapon with both hands, aiming directly at the center of the man's chest. The vein in his neck pulsed, sweat beaded on his temples, but it wasn't fear, it was pure, unadulterated rage. "You know what you are, huh?" he spat, not lowering his weapon an inch. "A plague. A goddamn pest that should have never left the cotton fields. You'll always be slaves." The man being targeted remained motionless. His jaw was still clenched, his gaze as firm as steel, yet he uttered no sound. He just breathed deeply, repeatedly, as if counting down seconds. Mark raised his gun higher, now aiming between the man's eyebrows. "What's wrong? Lost your tongue now, huh?" Mark took another step forward. "I swear to God, if you make a single strange move, I'll put a bullet in your head. I don't give a damn who you are. To me, you're just another black man looking for trouble." And then the man slowly lifted his gaze skyward, as if measuring time, before deliberately lowering his eyes back to Mark with a calm that was more unnerving than the gun itself. "You will regret every word." Mark smiled, unmoving. "I highly doubt it." Mark's finger rested on the trigger. He breathed like a cornered beast, but he was the one with the gun, the control, the authority, or so he believed. The man in front of him remained still, not trembling, not backing down. His silence was a challenge, and it sickened Mark. Just a few yards away, a woman inside a grocery store held her phone, hidden behind the glass door. Her voice was urgent, low but clear. "He's pointing a gun at an unarmed man." "Yes, a pistol." "No, there's no provocation. The officer is shouting horrible things. I don't know who the man is, but please, come quickly. This is going to end badly." Mark knew nothing of that call. The man's hands remained still, his gaze fixed on the officer as if waiting for something to break, perhaps his patience, or the trigger. And it broke. "I've had enough of you, you damn," Mark shrieked, beside himself. "You're just a pest to society." And without warning, he fired. The detonation ripped through the air like a whip crack. The man took a step back from the impact. The shot had struck his left shoulder, his blazer instantly soaked crimson. He dropped to his knees with a deep groan, a sound more of containment than pain, clutching his wound with his other hand, gritting his teeth. Mark Thorne looked down at him as if he had just squashed an annoying insect. "There. That'll teach you to show some respect, trash." The street fell utterly silent. Only the distant wail of an ambulance and the rapidly approaching sirens of several patrol cars could be heard. Mark didn't react immediately. He was breathing heavily, his weapon still raised, staring at the man on the ground as if he couldn't believe it wasn't over yet. Then he heard his patrol car radio squawk. An agitated voice crackling through, "Unit 34, put down your weapon. I repeat, put down your weapon immediately." Mark frowned, confused for the first time, taking a step back and looking both ways. The sirens were upon them, lights reflecting off storefronts, tires squealing as two patrol cars and an unmarked van screeched to a halt. Several agents spilled out, all armed, all pointing not at the wounded man, but at Mark. On the ground, Thorne. "Now. Drop the weapon. Drop it. You've got a man wounded. That's an illegal shot." Mark looked around, bewildered. His hand remained firm on the pistol. He took another step back, then another. He couldn't believe it. "What the hell are you doing? He's the suspect. He's a damn black man. I'm the law here." On the ground, everyone shouted in unison. And on the pavement, the injured man slowly lifted his head and for the first time, smiled. Mark stood, guns still raised, surrounded by police officers now pointing their weapons at him. The world seemed to spin upside down. "You're crazy," he yelled. "He's a black man in a suit. That doesn't make him innocent. You don't know who I am." One of the agents, his bulletproof vest straining with adrenaline, approached slowly. He gritted his teeth and barked, "Put the weapon down, Thorne. Right now. You're under arrest for excessive use of force and unjustified shooting against an unarmed civilian." He wasn't just any civilian. Mark shouted back, taking another step. "Those black guys are scum. They act educated, but they're all the same. He provoked me." On the ground, another agent bellowed. "Last warning." Mark trembled, not from fear, but from a raging fury, an ancient hatred he no longer knew when it had first taken root within him. On the ground, the man was bleeding, his left blazer was soaked. He tried to move but struggled, pain etched on his face, yet his eyes remained fiercely alive. One of the agents, not aiming at Mark, ran to him, knelt, and began to check the wound. "We need to get him out of here, now," he yelled to the others. "The shot grazed his lung. I need an ambulance in 2 minutes or less." But the man clutched the agent's arm tightly, panting. "No, wait, sir, you need to stay still." The man looked up and though his voice was low, every word resonated with authority. "Call Chief Monroe. Tell him I'm the one who signed the federal order against Precinct 8. The man lay on the pavement, bleeding but calm. Officer Mark Thorne blinked in confusion. "What the hell did you just say?" Mark demanded. The man smiled faintly. "You pointed a gun at me, insulted me, shot me without even knowing who I was. Now you'll pay for every second." Mark took a shaky step back. "No. You're lying. You can't be part of the government. You're just a black guy in a suit." The other agents surrounding them didn't hesitate. They disarmed Mark and threw him to the ground. One murmured into his radio, confirmed. "It's him." The wounded man was treated with sudden reverence. "Sir, the ambulance is on the way, stay calm." "That's for me to say," the man replied through gritted teeth. At Kings County Hospital, doctors worked frantically, the bullet had narrowly missed his lung. A nurse froze. "Doctor, this man worked for the Department of Justice." "Then he better not die," the doctor replied grimly. Meanwhile, a colonel received a classified document from Washington, name, Julian Hayes, Principal Auditor, Department of Justice, tasked with investigating abusive and racist police departments. Mark Thorne, the officer who had just shot him, had unknowingly become the perfect face of the corruption Hayes came to expose. At 2:13 a.m., Mark sat in a cold cell, handcuffed and pale, stripped of his uniform and authority. An agent placed a folder on the table, complaints, transcripts, slurs, and abuses, all tied to him. "They're going to destroy me," Mark whispered. "No," the agent replied. "You destroyed yourself." At 8:02 a.m., Julian Hayes stood by his hospital window, arm bandaged. A message popped up on his phone: "The press knows nothing. We're ready to leak." He typed back, "Not yet. I want to be on my feet when it breaks." A young officer entered. "Sir, will you continue the audit?" "I didn't come here to watch," Hayes said. "I came to clean house." Next day, 11 a.m., press conference, DOJ headquarters. Julian Hayes walked to the podium. Cameras flashed. "Yesterday, I was shot by a police officer while performing my duties. He didn't know my name, my title, or why I was there. But he knew I was black, and that was enough." He paused. "As of today, a federal investigation into Precinct 8 is formally underway. All officers will be audited. All cases reviewed. Racism and abuse of power will be prosecuted as federal crimes." The room erupted in flashes and murmurs. "I didn't come here to make speeches," Hayes concluded. "I came to tear out the rot. And this is just the beginning." Weeks later, Mark Thorne sat silently in his prison cell. A letter arrived bearing the seal of the Department of Justice. One sentence was highlighted: "You were not the victim of a mistake, you were the example." He didn't scream. He didn't speak. He simply trembled. The case didn't end with Thorne. Julian Hayes, alongside his attorney Ms. Alex Clark and a remorseful officer David Vance, uncovered a corruption ring that stretched beyond St. Louis. They reopened a 5-year-old case involving a young officer who had tried to expose abuse and was found dead, officially a suicide, but with inconsistencies pointing to murder. That case led to the investigation, and Julian, a federal force, exposed systemic patterns of abuse nationwide. Alex testified publicly, inspiring reforms and whistleblower protections. Julian became an unstoppable force in court. Thorne was convicted on multiple charges. His fall became a symbol that no one is above the law. Julian, promoted to a senior position in the FBI, rewrote policies and trained a new generation of agents. But he never forgot the cost: the sleepless nights, the threats, the glances that followed him. One afternoon in Birmingham, sitting in his mother's house, Julian touched an old photo of his father. His mother, tears in her eyes, said, "He'd be proud of you." Julian didn't respond, but for the first time in years, he took a deep breath, letting the weight lighten, if only for a moment. This is not just Julian's story, it's a call to all of us. What would you do if the system tried to silence you? Would you speak out, even when it was uncomfortable? Would you listen to those who finally find the courage to break their silence? Justice doesn't come with applause or trophies, it comes with scars, sleepless nights, and the simple, radical act of doing what's right over and over again. Julian showed us that one voice can change everything. Now it's your turn. Share in the comments what you would have done in her place. What does this story mean to you? Subscribe for more stories that transform pain into purpose. Justice doesn't come with applause or trophies. It comes with scars, sleepless nights, and the simple, radical act of doing what's right over and over again. Julian Hayes showed us that one voice can change everything. Now it's your turn. Share in the comments what you would have done in her place, and what this story means to you. Subscribe for more stories that transform pain into purpose.